ìfilọ̀ mìíràn.
Olùdarí ilé kò sí ìfilọ̀ kankan ní òní sà.
Ọ̀rọ̀ pàjáwìrì lórí àǹfààní aráàlú kò sí, àlàyé ara ẹni kò sí, àbọ̀ ìwádìí. Kí a tó tẹ̀síwájú lórí ètò ìmúṣẹ́ṣe tòní, mo ní àǹfààní láti ṣe àbọ̀ ìwádìí tí ó já sí orí ìpàdé tí ìjọ abẹnugan tó ń gba gómìnà ní ìmọ̀ràn, tó jẹ́ ìjọ tí ó ga jù nínú agbo òṣèlú ẹgbẹ́ APC ní ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó pè ní ìjẹta, ní èyí tí wọ́n pe èmi fúnra mi àti àwọn ẹlẹgbẹ́ wa tí wọ́n wà ní orí ìdádúró ráńpẹ́ sí ìpàdé náà ní abẹ́ olùdarí tó jẹ́ olórí wa Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu àti àwọn gbogbo àgbẹ̀gbẹ́ wa tí ó kù, látòrí gómìnà wa ti ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó ọ̀gbẹ́ni Babájídé Sanwó-Olú àti àwọn àgbẹ̀gbẹ́ wa lóríṣiríṣi bíi bàbá wa Tajudeen Olùsí àti Dr. Àbáyọ̀mí Fíní àti Chief Olùwà, Chief KLM Alhaji Lanre Rasak àti Chief Seriki láti Ẹ̀pẹ́ àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀, àti Alhaji Mutiu Ààrẹ àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ tí wọ́n pè wá sí ìjókòó ní abẹ́ olùdarí ìjókòó náà tó jẹ́ olórí wa, ìyẹn ni bàbá wa Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu, tí a sì sọ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀, wọ́n sì pa láṣẹ fún wa láti rí wípé àwọn ẹlẹgbẹ́ wa tó wà ní ìdádúró kí a pè wọ́n padà wá sí inú ilé padà, kí wọ́n padà wá máa jókòó gẹ́gẹ́ bí aṣojú. Nítorí ìdí èyí, mo fi tó wa létí pé láti ìjókòó ilé tó máa bẹ̀rẹ̀, àwọn ẹlẹgbẹ́ wa tó kù tí a mọ̀ ní Moshood Ọ̀ṣun, Rotimi Abiru àti Rahim Adéwálé pẹ̀lú Wahab Jimoh, wọ́n padà darapọ̀ mọ́ wa láti ìjókòó tí ó ń bọ̀, tó jẹ́ pé ìdádúró ráńpẹ́ wọn ó ti wá sí òpin. Èyí ni àbọ̀ wádìí wọn. Ètò ìmúṣẹ́ṣe tòní
olùdarí àti gbogbo àwọn ẹlẹgbẹ́ mìíràn tó kù, kí a lè ríṣẹ́ tòní ṣe pẹ̀lú ìrọ̀rùn gẹ́gẹ́ bí òfin tí a fẹ́ ṣe ní èní, ká lè ṣe ríṣẹ́ nírọ̀rùn pẹ̀lú ìyọ̀ǹda olùdarí, mo dá lábàá pé abala kejì ẹsẹ̀ 11 tó sọ wípé a máa lo èdè Yorùbá fi ṣe iṣẹ́ ní ọjọ́ Àlàmísì ní pé ká fi rọ̀, mo dá lábàá.
Aṣòfin Ṣọ́lájà.
Mo kí olùdarí àti àwọn ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ mo dìde láti gbé lẹ́sẹ̀.
Ṣé gbogbo wa ló fara mọ́? Àwọn tí ò fara mọ́, àwọn tó fara mọ́ ló pọ̀ jùlọ. Igbákejì olórí ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ tó pọ̀ sọ Deputy Majority Leader.
Right Honourable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, business of the day. We have House of Assembly Bill number 8, supported by myself, Honourable Mrs. Miranda Apapa 1, Honourable Mrs. Shongodara Surulere 2, Honourable Shokunle Oshodi Solo 1, Honourable Makinde Ifakojaye 2, Honourable Layode Badagry 1, Honourable Ogundimu Agege 2, Honourable Yusuf Alimosho 1, Honorable Tobun Ekpe 1, Honorable Engineer Ishao Etiosa 2, Honorable Brahimo Koshofe 2, Honorable Elliot Surulere 2. Mr. Speaker, we have Emergency Coronavirus Pandemic Bill 2020, first reading. A bill for a law to combat and stop the spread of the coronavirus pandemic in Lagos State and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I move that this bill be read for the first time? I so move.
Aṣòfin Kásùlù.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
Pardon me. All in favor say ayes. Those against the ayes have it. Sorry about that. Mr. Clerk.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, with your kind permission, I'll read for the first time Emergency Coronavirus Pandemic Bill 2020. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, fellow colleagues, in line with rules and standing order of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Section 8, subsection 1, I wish to move that House of Assembly Bill number 8, the second reading and the third reading be included on the order paper of the day. I so move.
Honorable Rotimolo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
All in favor say ayes. Those against the ayes have it. Deputy Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I wish to move that the second reading be read for the second time. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Tijani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against the ayes have it. Who goes first? Honorable Kasumu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Recognizing the commitment of the Lagos State House of Assembly under the leadership of the Right Honorable Speaker in caring for the citizens, and while commending the proactiveness of this House, especially you, Mr. Speaker, as the pioneer legislator of virtue, by virtue of this relief bill before us, which is the first of its kind in the legislature of Nigeria. However, sir, this bill as it is aimed at alleviating the impact of the widespreading coronavirus outbreak on the Lagos economy. The general economic hardship of the people as well. This bill, when passed and signed into law, will enable the executive arm of government, the governor to be precise, and give the power to expend the necessary funds to combat the coronavirus pandemic that we have facing the whole world today, with Lagos in particular reference. State-owned hospitals, for example, will get better support and be skillfully equipped to be able to deal with the growing rate of the pandemic cases. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the bill will bring sanity to our Lagos as regards the citizens being law-abiding and in these trying times, which are very delicate times. So to this end, Mr. Speaker, I would like to support, however, the speedy passage of this bill because it is a very essential bill and a bill that is necessary at this time to further combat the spread of the coronavirus that seems to be eating deep into the heart of the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, this bill is apt, it's timely. It's an urgent bill. I don't know if we'll have enough time to put everything that is necessary to be put inside, but we are going to beg Lagosians to bear with us. But, Mr. Speaker, you all know what this pandemic is. It's not new. It happened several times over time in life. But it's the way human beings, government react to it that matters. And I think for Lagos State, this bill is key because it shows that we are reacting to it and we're ensuring that we get a better life for our people. It is not, as we speak, 150 countries already have this on their territory. And unfortunately, Lagos was the first point that received it in Nigeria. So it is necessary that Lagos State respond very fast to this virus. The bill, there's some areas of the bill that I feel we should look at. For starters, whether this bill should be strictly for coronavirus. It's an opportunity to create an emergency bill. We've had Ebola, we have Lassa fever there. We should look at the possibility of broadening this bill to include other epidemics, even if it's not a pandemic, epidemics that may come up. Also, in the first section, we should define what the disease is going to be about. Then, I believe if it's going to go beyond this just coronavirus, it's going to become a bigger epidemic bill. There must be a procedure of declaration of the emergency. So a section must be created, or section 2 should be expanded to include a procedure for the proclamation of the emergency by the governor, something similar to what we have in section 308, 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, so that there would be some control on how it is done with the approval of this House of Assembly. Also, we have a regulation approval law, which requires that when subsidiary legislations are being made, the executive must have recourse to this House before it becomes effective. And subsidiary legislation will be a very fast way for the government to react to changing the dynamics of this virus. So I would suggest also that the section is put in there where the process of regulation is reversed. Maybe the governor can go out there, put a regulation out there, come back to the House for approval. If the resolution is given, fine. If it's not given, then it's stepped down. So that is also very important. There's a section that has to do with energy, that provision of energy. I think that section should be dropped because I don't know how we're going to be able to sustain that. There's another one that has to do with arrest. Arrest, we need to specify the punishment when the person flouts the restriction law. So there must be some punishment stipulated for those kind of arrests that we have stated. Then there are places we talked about locking down an area that's been infected or establishment that we've been infected. I think we should look at that carefully because if it's a town, we lock it down, we can't remove everybody in there because it says the persons will not be able to reside there again. I'm sure that's not what we intend to do. What we intend to do is that we can quarantine the place, we can stop businesses from opening, but the residents will most likely still remain there. But if it happens to be a building, a private building, that, yes, we can evacuate the building. So we also need to look at that. We should be careful on the issue of volunteers going to take care of maybe sick people that the employer should pay them. It's a labor law. I don't know if it falls within our purview. I think that's an exclusive legislatively matter. Mr. Speaker, I cannot exhaust what I have here, but I believe this is the bill, the way to go as a state, a responsive state, a state that cares about the lives and property of the people that we are standing here to govern, and it's key that we provide that leadership. Finally, what I would love to see in this bill is that when each arm of government, the head of each arm of government should be responsible for the restriction of their own service, not just the executive shutting down the entire country. House of Assembly should speak on it, and the Chief Judge of the state should also speak on it. Thank you very much.
Honorable Desmond.
Thank you, my right honorable speaker, for the opportunity. And thank you very much, sir, for this bill. I think it could not have come at a better time. Sir, we are going through very serious periods in the world and Lagos State as a state. I would like to also align myself with Honorable Yishao into seeing how we can broaden the scope of the bill. I understand because of the exigencies of this coronavirus bill, pandemic, we need to put it this way, but I think looking forward so that we don't have to keep coming back into amending the bill, that will make it a bit broadened. And, you know, like he said, an epidemic or an emergency situation. I also want to commend the fact as well, which is quite commendable, that we have the coronavirus relief fund, where, and I also want to commend the fact that we are being proactive into getting some relief for our people. So I just want to add, if we can put it here, that we also consider those essential service providers, that if we can make it a law, that they must be kitted. They must. We have, especially the environmental ones we see today, we see them on the street sweeping, they are not kitted, they don't have everything to make sure that they are being prevented, and they go back home. So those viruses can be done. So I feel this bill, we should find a way to include that into it, to make sure that everybody providing essential services must be kitted. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Fatai Mojid.
Good afternoon, Right Honorable Speaker. This bill have about 22 sections. However, Section 3 of the bill talks about the effect of the policies and the pronouncement of the governor. With your kind permissions, I read. All policies and pronouncements made by the governor during the period of the state of emergency shall have binding effect on all federal government agencies in the state ministries, departments, agencies, private and public-owned organizations, including bank and related services. Since this bill is specifically for coronavirus, I'm of opinion that the churches and the mosques should also be included in this Section 3. Furthermore, Section 7, subsection 3, with your kind permissions, I read, every medical practitioner consulting or caring for any patient suffering from coronavirus infections must give notice, orally or in writing, to the medical officers of health. Distinguished colleagues, since we have a laws in place in our own state that recognize the existence of the Lagos State Traditional Medicine Board, this section should be applicable to them, because some of our people believe in auto-medicine. I believe that we need to include them so that they can furnish the health officers on a daily basis. And also, since the conflicts of the coronavirus in the state, I believe that the state have incurred a lot of expenditures in this regard, and it's an expenditure that is not efficient. I believe that there is a need for us to empower the governor to incur more expenditures in this regard. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, fellow colleagues. Well, I noticed, sorry, sir. There is a section, okay, section 16. I just felt that it wouldn't be a bad idea if we can also include another subsection that will accommodate maybe people working or people infected with such diseases after they have been treated and cleared fit and okay. They should be able to go back to their various offices and return back to their various homes, because I can remember vividly during the Ebola period, some landlords refused their tenants to come back to the house. Likewise, some organizations also laid off the infected patient even after being treated and declared fit and okay to go back into the society. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Ajani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is very apt and targeted for the moment, sir. But I'm also in the same line with Honorable Yishao and Honorable Desmond, in which they said that the law should cover more than just the coronavirus, sir. I believe we can start with just the title of the law, sir, in which it says that it should curb the spread of the coronavirus. I believe, sir, I should say it should curb the spread of infectious diseases in the event of any global or regional epidemic before it even escalates to the level of a pandemic, sir. This would ensure that the governor is able to act very swiftly, as we've seen that Italy is much in the same place as we were 30 years ago, sir, 30 days ago, sir. But if we look at them today, they're looking at almost 60,000 people infected. So if we change it to allow the governor to act as swift as possible, it will ensure that he can close borders or close regular businesses that could be epicenters for the spread of the virus as swiftly as possible to ensure that the spread doesn't go out. And also, sir, to tag on to that section is the fact that the bill clearly states the issues at hand and the people and the shops that will be closed and the shops that are allowed to be open. But, sir, I also ask that we should immediately test government workers and government officials, because if there's going to be a shutdown of state facilities and we expect government workers to keep on working, we have to ensure that they're infection-free so that they can carry on their work without infecting others around the state while they do so. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Jimmy Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to commend the originator of this particular bill. It has come at a very apt and proper time. Likewise, I'd like to toe the line of the speakers who have spoken before me with respect to, I would like to toe the line of the speakers who have spoken before me with respect to the long title of the bill. I believe as such, it should encompass more epidemic or virological diseases which would not be restricted to the coronavirus. Also, in the interpretation section, I have noticed that the security agencies were not defined per se, because if we go further down in one of the sections, it talks about inclusive of the neighborhood safety watch. So I believe in the interpretation section, there should be an interpretation section that would define who the security agencies are. Section 3 as well too, if we are all in consonance with the fact that it should encompass other viral diseases, I believe the heading, which is called the Coronavirus Relief Fund, should be changed. And as those too, the amount too shouldn't be fixed. Because right now, it's saying that it's 10 billion to combat and to spread the spread of coronavirus. I think what it should be is that the governor should be allowed to send a particular bill depending on the epidemic at the particular time of what will reflect what will curb the action, and it should be subject to the passage of the House of Assembly. Also, with respect to Section 8 as well too, I believe the punishment that has been preferred there is a little bit too harsh. A property, if you permit me to read, it says, a property owner who knowingly fails to disclose or harbors a person suspected to be infected with the coronavirus commits an offense and shall be liable on conviction of the forfeiture of the said property. I think a forfeiture of a property is a little bit too harsh with respect to that. Fines should be imposed. Also, with respect to Section 13 too, as well too, subject to the agreement of the House, the name of the section, which it says coronavirus pandemic, should be changed and broadened and widened as well. Apart from that, I think it's a timely bill which should be passed with swift concurrence of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Lumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me join my colleagues in appreciating the fact that this very bill is very apt and most appropriate at this very time. I also want to appreciate the fact that the bill provides for the governor the power to spend about 10 billion naira in this circumstance. But I also want to say that the role of the first respondents, that is the doctors and other medical practitioners, that are saddled with the responsibility of taking care of the sick should be well considered in this bill. If this bill goes ahead to provide for insurance for them because they carry the first risk, I think it will be in good line. Then I want us to look at Section 4 and Section 19, whether they are not in conflict with the federal government role in our Constitution. Because Section 4 is talking about all policies and pronouncements made by the governor during the period of the state of emergency shall have binding effect on all federal government agencies in the state and MDAs. So I want us to look in line whether it does have any conflict with our role in line with the state. And also Section 19, where the Commissioner for Energy is required to provide power during this period with the IPP. I imagine the number of houses that it can cover, but I know for one that it is only allowed to cover public, Lagos State public infrastructure. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Rotimi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving us this bill. It shows the ingenuity and that you are pro-people. Because at this time of our lives, we appreciate what is happening in America today. America has set aside $2.2 trillion as stimulus fund to fight this pandemic. And for us to have this is very noble. I think it's about the first bill to address this issue of pandemic, and it shows how ingenuity Mr. Speaker is and this House is. Mr. Speaker, apart from the funding, which obviously is going to combat and be able to contain this epidemic, it is called pandemic because of the speed is unprecedented. Hence, the provisions that made penalty very stringent is welcome because it's to serve as deterrent. We are talking about lives there. Even property is nothing you can quantify when you talk about life. So this bill, I appreciate those stringent penalties, and I appreciate the geographic spread of the disease centers, which this bill is canvassing for. Because Lagos is very thick, as far as Ekpe to Lagos, it can take at times 2-3 hours when there's traffic. But if we're able to disseminate into the divisions, that means we are going to have holistic treatment. It will not be lopsided. So this bill is talking about the need for us to have life and regain our lives. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I look critically at the bill and I look, why do we need to sunset such a beautiful bill like this? All we need to do is to make it to be more encompassing by not just talking about coronavirus now, but talking about all other pandemics, because in China today, we have what they call antivirus, and it has not gotten to Nigeria. And this coronavirus started in China. So we don't know. We have had Ebola. We have had flu and other things that are highly contagious. I would pray, with the concurrence of Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, that we should make this bill to be alive for life. But there can be a clause or clauses where if peradventure any of such epidemic or pandemic arises, there is the need for Mr. Governor to come back to this House to seek the approval of this House for necessary funding. And that shows that the bill will continue to exist because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. But we pray that God save us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving us this bill.
Honorable Laiwala.
Good afternoon, the Right Honorable and my colleagues. I stand before the House to support this motion that we have before us today. And for a right thinking and a good honorable members of the House, we will say that this kind of bill is a bill that we should add our voice to. So, in the light of this, I need to join my colleagues to praise our Right Honorable for this apt and the bill that was brought before us today. The bill is very apt because when we talk of coronavirus, we know that it's very pandemic, it's no more epidemic, and we believe that for the proactiveness of this House, that we need to take the bull by the horn. Mr. Speaker, sir, I need to call our attention to Section 3 of the bill, the one that has to do with the provision of 10 billion naira for the governor. The governor is empowered to incur the expenditure, but we need to state how and how he is going to get the money. I think we should include the corporate organization too, that he can source the money from the corporate organization, because we know that we have security bill that we have now that is talking about our corporate dishing out money into this state security bill that we have. Mr. Speaker, sir, I equally notice that Section 18, Section 8 of the bill is talking about screening and infectious disease center, that we should have it in 3 divisions of the state to ensure, the 5 divisions of the state, sorry, to ensure easy and adequate access to suspected coronavirus cases. It's not only to have easy and adequate access, sir. I believe suspected coronavirus cases, but we should make a provision for medical aids to the victim, because there is a difference between having adequate access to the victim. So we should make provision for it, sir. Lastly, we need to educate ourselves, and the government have been doing that. I strongly believe that Ministry of Information and Strategy and other relevant agencies too, they need to continuously provide information so that the populace will be in the know of this pandemic. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Setonji.
Thank you very much, sir, the Right Honorable Speaker. First and foremost, I want to appreciate the proponent of this bill. It's a very good and wonderful bill. It shows how responsible we are in Lagos. But my concern is about the number of sections here. The first one has to do with Section 3. The governor is limited to spend 10 billion naira. I think the health of our people, of a state of over 20-something million people, is worth more than 10 billion. So we cannot, rightly estimate how much will be needed. So I'm of the opinion that just like it's going on in America now, where the bill, the president has brought before the both houses the amount they're going to use for this stimulus fund. I'm of the opinion that the governor at that particular time, God forbid if you have such similarity, but you bring an estimate, a budget to the House, and the House under an emergency session could quickly approve that amount for the governor instead of limiting him to 10 billion naira. God forbid we have that kind of situation. Secondly, Section 4, that tells us that about laws, if you permit me to read, sir, it says all policies and pronouncements made by the governor during the period of the state of emergency shall have binding effect on all federal government policies, agencies. I'm of the humble opinion that federal laws are superior to our laws. Irrespective of whatever we do here, according to the constitution of this country, if there is a federal law that negates our position here, I don't think we can impose our law on the federal law. That's why I'm a little bit apprehensive with that section. Also, on the issue of property, just like my colleague rightly said, that forfeiture of a property because somebody is being, the landlord did not disclose, I think a fine would have been most appropriate, sir. And lastly, that has to do with stimulus. You know, the people are, especially in our own economy where the majority of our people live on daily basis. They live on what they are able to produce. Some of them are not working today. Their survival is in penury. It's in jeopardy rather. So I'm of the opinion that a stimulus package too should also be provided by the governor or the government, and that should be included in our bill. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Jude.
Good afternoon, my right honorable speaker, and my colleagues. For those, my distinguished colleagues, those that have spoken before me now, they have mentioned a lot of things, which probably I'll just add one or two. Like when you look at the section 1, for me, when you talk about essential services, sir, I believe, or I think the definition of essential services here are not comprehensive enough for my own thinking. Like others have said, environmental officers are supposed to be involved. You also have the media men. They also work places like the security, which we even have, like the neighborhood watch we mentioned along the line. They are not also taken into consideration as part of, based on this definition you have as essential services people. Communication operator, even fire service. So, sir, I believe that we should look at this aspect very well and give a better comprehensive definition concerning essential services, sir. Now, when we go to section 3, sir, like rightly said by some of my colleagues already, I believe that limiting the governor to 10 billion alone is, we are tying his hand. God forbid, what if situation warrants spending more than that, what happens? So I think we can allow him, like the last speaker have just spoken, that he can always come up with budget estimates as the case arises, which for me will be a little bit flexible. Then even the figure mentioned here, well, I'm thinking that there might be a regulation that might come to spell out how this money could be spent by the governor. And like Honorable Omititi has mentioned, we could as well encourage a situation whereby we can have a trust fund where private individuals and private companies that have resources that are willing to support can also make free will donation to those funds. Because at times, situations like this, government don't have enough funds. The responsibility of government are so many that at times they cannot meet up. So if they can get support from private organizations and individuals, I think for me, it is good. Then, sir, when we look at our section 9, subsection 4, where we talk about prison and boats. So for me, I'm thinking the prison, okay, it's not prison, we call it correction center now. That the correction centers now are even congested. And we are thinking of discongesting it. Coming up with bills that will also put more people into the correction center. I think we should look for another way. If it's community services that they can do, and that one we will like shame them. You will even shame them better than locking them up in correction services. I think we should look at that aspect. Then, sir, I also want to appreciate you for this.
Honorable Victor Akonde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my voice to all what my colleagues have been saying. But my own view is very, very simple. And I will take us to section 22. That is the citation and the commencement. And with the kind permission of Mr. Speaker, let me quickly read. This law shall be cited as the Emergency Coronavirus Pandemic Law 2020, and it shall become into force on the dash day of dash 2020, and shall remain in force until the government certifies that the state is totally free of pandemic. What the import of this is that it is something that is urgent and is a shortfall. We can come back with this law and amend and beautify it the way we want it to be. But for the urgency of this particular pandemic, we need to just do something, and not just do something proactively. And I would say with the concurrence of all my colleagues, I'll say that we should just allow you to go because it is very, very urgent. By the time we are trying to make sure that we come back, we amend, we discuss it, we don't know how many lives that will have been lost. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Nureni.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. First of all, let me appreciate Mr. Speaker for coming up with this fantastic bill. The bill comes at the right time, sir. First of all, I just want to talk to Section 3, sir. I quite agree with some decision. I'm standing up a little to support the motion, to support the bill. But I just want to, point out some points, sir. If we go to Section 3, sir, with your permission, sir, that we should empower governor to spend 10 billion naira. But I can see maybe we should do say this, sir, 10 billion naira, or if need arise for more, because it's an emergency bill. So then the other one, sir, is section, if anybody, section 8, sir, we can still try the property owner, sir. In case of the property, some people, most of property in Lagos State is an inherited property. Some of them are not living there. So confiscation, we can look at it very well, sir. Maybe fine. So I'm in support of Honorable Olajimi, because most of them are not living there.
Because of your houses?
No, sir. So they may not be aware, sir. Then the other one that they said, if you, the 1 million naira fine, sir, that if a person, that is section 5, that if someone is, if hire somebody to run away, I think it's a section, yes, sir, that 1 million naira, 1 million naira is too much, sir. We can look at it like 500,000, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Lastly, Honorable Tokwe.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I want to commend you as the best speaker in Africa. This bill has come at a very right time. It shows that the House of Assembly, Lagos House of Assembly, led by your leadership, is full of empathy. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, I want to commend the governor for the proactive measures he has put in place to be able to curb the growth of this pandemic. Till date, Lagos State is still recording as low as 51%, 51 people, compared to other foreign bodies. Mr. Speaker, this is a very good bill. This is a bill I support wholeheartedly. This is a bill I'm eager for it to be passed into law so the governor can move as fast as possible to support what he's been doing. Mr. Speaker, I have few points I want to make, and I have my observations. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Section 3, where he allows the governor to be empowered to incur expenditure of the sum of 10 billion. Just like Honorable Judah said, Mr. Speaker, there's also the law should also allow for public donations and also to create a trust fund, just like we have the security trust fund. Mr. Speaker, if you go to section 17, where it says the government shall ensure all necessary health provisions are put in place, safeguard for fumigation and sanitization. Mr. Speaker, may we commend the governor for, yesterday we saw a video of how bus stops and the bus shelters, at the same time the buses are being fumigated. They should also try and extend that to our religious centers within the state. Mr. Speaker, section 18, establishment of infectious disease centers in the state. I'm of the opinion that all government abandoned properties over the years should be immediately converted to test centers and recovery centers as a makeshift. This would save the government a lot of cost and it will give speedy time to set up these centers. Mr. Speaker, regarding the section 19, the power supply, I believe these centers that would be converted should also have an IPP that would power the centers so as to not have power failure and failure of ventilators. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that the governor should take this opportunity now that we have less vehicular movement on the road, to fix the roads with speed so that by the time this pandemic is gone and we have more vehicular movement on the road, we would not have ongoing constructions at the same time that will lead to further traffic. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I believe a stimulus package for Lagosians, both small and small businesses, through employment, should be given as incentives to the people. This is my submission. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you all for your contributions. We are talking about emergency, something unexpected, and we expect the governor to take action. The essence of this bill is to empower the governor to make a pronouncement, in respect of the disease we are talking about, and there's a need to have take-off fund. So the reference to 10 billion in this bill is a take-off fund for the government to start something. We're having in mind that we have provision in the budget that certain amount contingency and also, which we all know cannot, it's not up to this volume, but the governor has to start doing something, which they have started already. So we are also creating an opportunity for the governor not to act outside law, so that there could be something that guides the activities of the governor. And those who have been arrested by violating, the directive of the governor, there is no law, to try them for. So we have to do something, we have to put something in place in the interest of our people and in the interest of the government. So the governor has to be seen doing something, not just doing something, but making effective pronouncement. And people also, abiding by the directive of the governor. So we know the fund may not be enough, but there's a room. At least having start something, then the governor can always make recourse to the House. But we are talking about emergency. It starts to be treated in such manner. So if you have to follow the procedure, that means the, the disease in circulation will continue to increase before we, you have the budget, you pass the budget and also, but the governor has to start doing something to protect the people. And that is why there's a provision in that bill suggesting that they keep like a kick-off fund, to have kick-off fund of 10 billion before we can now put in unnecessary things. And the establishment we talk about is just like a makeshift. What we have now in Lagos is only Yaba. And of recent, they've started something in, what is it called? Oniko Stadium. So are we saying people from Badagry has to come to this side? People from Agege and Ekpe is close, Ikorodu, and also, they all have to rush down there. So we are saying, let's have something that can take care of people around that area. It can be a makeshift and some of that nature that has to be equipped with personnel, volunteers, and those who are medical practitioners who have retired. They can be recalled and retrained, so they will be of help. And these are the things we are talking about before it gets to stage of those of European countries. That is the essence of this bill. And those who have suggested that, well, we should not sunset this bill, well, we look at it. But what is most important is what is at hand now, what we are being challenged of now, which is the coronavirus. Let us look at this, and there's a need to provide a law that will be enduring. But the fear in this, empowering the governor to make, such a delicate pronouncement at every point in time is a very delicate thing. And I'm sure such pronouncement is not that is welcome to any parliament. But because of this situation, we can allow that. But it's not something we have to encourage or leave for a long time in the interest of the people and most especially the parliament as well. As somebody suggested that the closure of the parliament or judiciary should be to the decision of the head of such institutions. So these are the fears we have to put into consideration by passing this law. But the most important thing, we are in an emergency situation, and we need to take emergency decision just to combat what is facing us. And that is why we are here. We welcome all the ideas and suggestions, and I also agree with you there should be what we call epidemic trust fund that should be included in the bill, so it won't be government's edict alone. You know, those who are generous in our society can as well make contributions, you know, to support the government, as we have seen in China, in America, where individuals, even sportsmen, are now contributing. It could be in form of materials, food, and everything, so that those we are trying to lock up, at least, can also be taken good care of. I think it has to be treated in the emergency way. And that's why we're having the first reading, second reading, and we'll be having the third reading as well, so we can meet up the target, because we wouldn't know what will happen after today. Maybe there will be total lockup or otherwise. So if you don't complete this, it will not serve the purpose. And for those who have been violating the directive of the governor, they can be taken care under this law. So on this note, this bill is hereby committed to House Committee on Health that will report back in 2 hours. We'll get the Mr. Clark.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, with your kind permission, I'll read for the second time a bill for a law to combat and stop the spread of the coronavirus pandemic in Lagos State and for connected purposes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Deputy Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, in line with 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, Section 101, which talks about regulatory of procedure. Permit me to read, sir. Subject to the provisions of the Constitution subject to the provisions of this Constitution, a House of Assembly shall have power to regulate its own procedure. In line with this, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, may I move that the third reading of this bill be taken? I so move.
Honorable Jal.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the motion as moved. To second the motion as moved.
All in favor, say ayes. Those against, the ayes have it. Well, the third reading will be taken today, but that will be after the report of the committee. It's necessary to notify that the third reading will be taking place, but we still have to allow the committee to go and, you know, revise what we have as a bill as being discussed by members. Yeah, recess.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, in line with House of Assembly Rule 18, Order 5, Rule 18, subsection 8, permit me to read, sir. Until the time appointed for the termination of sitting is reached, the House shall not adjourn except in pursuance of this resolution. The motion for which may be made by the leader of the House or any other member as the presiding officer may direct. In line with this, may I move that this House proceed on 2 hours recess? I so move.
Honorable Kennedy Joseph.
Speaker, I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor, say ayes. Those against, the ayes have it. This House hereby goes for recess for 2 hours. I rise.